Tee'd Up. Tee'd Up is a webinar series that we're doing in V1 Sports. They're going to be smaller sections. We're able to highlight not only specific products, but some of our pros that are in our ecosystem and are using our platform, whether it's hardware, software, any of our technology. Our first guest today is going to be Matt Goudie. Matt is the Director of Instruction at Lancaster Country Club. Matt, if you can give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure, Chip. Thank you for having me. So I have been the Director of Instruction at Lancaster Country Club for 2 years. I've actually worked here for over 15 years. I graduated from Methodist University in North Carolina in 2008 and have actually been here ever since. Kind of worked up through the ranks, started as an intern, worked up through the assistant ranks, was first assistant for a number of years, and then as a number of places saw a major boom in incoming golfers. We never had a full-time instructor until I transitioned into the position 2 years ago. And the club really kind of took a chance with me and gave me a opportunity of a lifetime to really, make my dream come true. So I've been teaching full-time here since, and that's kind of my backstory there.
Great. How long have you taught? We are going to talk specifically about ground pressure today. Just a few questions to get started. How long have you taught with ground pressure, and what did it take to get started and for you to feel comfortable?
So I purchased my pressure mat. I think this is my third. It'll be just about 2 years actually coming up this November. As I knew I was transitioning into a role where I was teaching full time, I spoke with a lot of friends in the business and colleagues, and pressure seemed to be one of the bigger pieces of technology that a lot of people haven't necessarily gotten into, but also already very comfortable with the V1 app and software. To me, it was a easy transition. I really like the portability of it and the ease of use. But as far as getting accustomed to it, so I had worked with a friend of mine a couple times on my own swing, so I was able to see it there. I know when I purchased it, Chip, you spent some time, I think, on a webinar with me, being able to really kind of familiarize myself. But I'll tell you, thinking back to when I got it, it came in the mail. It was like a kid at Christmas. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got a new toy. So the next day I come in, right away I get myself on it, and I'm just kind of working on my own swing. And it was what I wanted to do before I really started using it teaching wise. I just worked with some students that I work with fairly regularly, basically explained, hey, I have this new piece of technology. I want to see how it works with your swing. And it was really beneficial to use it with swings that I was familiar with, because I already had somewhat of an idea of what was going on. Certainly the pressure mat shows you things video can't see, but I think it helps a lot to start with swings that you are familiar with, so that you're not getting distracted by all sorts of other things in the swing that you might overlook in a different scenario.
When you first got it, what were some of those questions that you had that you wanted to get answered right away, whether it was even before you made the purchase or, once you first got started?
So the biggest things that I wanted to kind of have an idea more or less was, what are some baseline numbers to look at? And there's tour average, but realistically, the people we're teaching, a lot of them aren't tour average. So being able to know what type of pivot people have, what kind of numbers are acceptable for different types of pivots. So myself, I don't have a big move to my right side. On a good swing, I might be 65, 68, maybe 70% into my right foot at the top of the swing. There are other people that I work with, if I see them at 70%, my red flag's going off because there are major issues with their normal swing. So kind of understanding what the acceptable range is, but also how some of those different numbers apply as the swing materializes too. So, some things that I really like to look at are, one, how do they move into the right side? When they move into the right side, how it looks in their foot. People that roll onto the outside of their right foot, you can see that in the pressure mat. Being able to see when they start to move left, and that's a good piece that's really dependent on how they pivot. If you have someone that stays more centered or even favors their left side, not that that's necessarily wrong, but they can't make a drastic move left as early as someone who gets 90% into the right foot, because that's going to really cause some timing issues and basically cause them to get out ahead of the ball, get stuck. So it's kind of understanding how those numbers work off of each other throughout the swing. But even just one of the things that I use it a lot for is breaking down where within the feet the pressure is. A lot of people get their pressure too far into the toes, especially in the follow through. So being able to understand some certain metrics that when I look at a swing, especially the first time, how I can kind of come up with the general idea as far as what's going on, where we need to focus, and how to prioritize things.
Great. Moving on, is there any swing flaw, like you see a certain swing flaw, whether it's early extension, whatever it is, that you're like, as soon as you see it, you're like, you know what, we need to get this guy on the pressure mat. Pressure is definitely going to be an easy fix for it.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things I would say my teaching in the past couple of years is kind of a little side note here. Past couple of years, I've become TPI certified, which has given me a lot greater understanding of how our body moves and why we move the way we do. But really focusing on hip rotation in the backswing, I think, is a really, really good starting point for a lot of people. And when you're looking at a right-handed golfer, if they don't get their right hip deep enough, right away I'm going to pressure. And the reason for that is it can be awkward to tell people at times, I want your right hip to go deeper, or I want you to move your right hip to the left heel. Some people really don't get good feedback or feelings when they're thinking about their hips. However, if I can show them in the pressure mat that, hey, at the top of your swing, your pressure's in the front of your right foot. I want you to get into the right heel at the top of your swing. Anybody can feel that. I don't care what level player they are. They could be a complete beginner. And a lot of times when you correct that type of placement of the pressure, especially in their trail foot, it can change things all the way to the top of the swing. I'll see at times where we'll completely fix club position solely with a simple tweak of the pressure in the right foot. That's one of the bigger ones that I see at times. Another one that I'll see, especially, and I think there might be a video that's been cycling up on here, but there's a student that I work with who really has a predominant stall in his hips at times. And as a result, or that was a result of where he gets the pressure in his left foot. So coming through impact, he gets to a point where that pressure is significantly forward. And I remember, if we're looking at that position where arms are parallel past impact, he was still like 70-75% into the front of his left foot. We got him back to just inside or just past 50-50 into the left heel. His hip rotation's a lot more consistent, and you can see that there's nowhere near the stall that he has in his hips, as well as nowhere near as the stall in the transition of pressure from right foot to left foot. So it can really help with if you want to talk about kinematic sequence in the swing, it really helps with all that type of stuff as well.
So you'd say, with that gentleman that has that hip stall, if you didn't have ground pressure, you probably wouldn't have been able to figure it out or fix it.
There are some people you can see on video, but I would say this is one that you probably couldn't. Every once in a while, you'll see where the heel will actually come up off the ground and they'll really be up on their toes. This was a gentleman that he was favoring the front, but you certainly couldn't see the change. But there's nothing more powerful than being able to show a student and they can see that heat map. And I'll ask them a stupid question. I say, where in your foot is it raining the hardest? Everyone knows what a thunderstorm looks like on a radar. And all of a sudden they're like, well, right there in the front of my foot. Exactly. We need to get that into your left heel. And it's just amazing how people see that with their feet. They can feel it with their feet. And all of a sudden they make changes in their swing that can be hard to elaborate how you want those changes to happen at times too.
Never heard that, the thunderstorm analogy with the pressure map, but I like that.
Yep.
Talk to me about traveling with it, the portability, how that makes it easy to be able to teach anywhere you are.
Yeah, so right now you can kind of see behind me, I'm in our indoor center. We have 3 simulators in here. In the winter, this is basically my office. Outdoors or over the summer, we do not have a fixed building. And as you can imagine, people like to be outside. So I show up in the morning, I hop in my golf cart, I keep everything in my golf cart. On the floorboard, I have my pressure mat rolled up, and I take it with me everywhere I go. So it hooks up to my iPad. It uses a portable little USB type battery pack. So I can whip it out anytime I want. I have it with me 100% of the time. I've taken it out on the course. I really like to use it in bunkers with people, side hill lies, uphill lies, things like that. Just being able to have it with me at all times is extremely beneficial. Super useful, very, very friendly to take around.
Awesome. That's great, Matt. And what would you say to someone who might be interested in the pressure mat, but sort of on the fence, about making the purchase?
So I would say for years, I was always kind of the old school, video's good. Oh, technology, all it is for show. I have changed my position on that for sure. And my take anymore is almost, a lot of times the naysayers for technology don't have it. And it's kind of justifying in our own minds why we don't need something. And I still fall into that trap at times. I mean, there's all sorts of types of technology out there, and I think some are certainly more valuable than others. Being able to have something that I can take with that can create a visual for people is extremely valuable. I will say that it was probably the biggest, or not the biggest, the best investment I've made in my teaching career. It has helped me see things that I didn't see before. It has also helped me to understand why things happen a lot better. And I mentioned TPI before. It was kind of in conjunction or similar timing between those two, and being able to have a greater understanding of why the body moves, but then being able to measure how the body moves. Those two things together have been an absolute home run for me. I would certainly recommend anyone that's thinking about it and is comfortable making that type of purchase to absolutely do it. I don't think that you'll regret it. Plenty of colleagues in the business that I speak to fairly regularly. Ground pressure is an enormous tool to use.
Great. Also, as you look at the data, there's three separate charts. There's a center of chart, there's the velocity chart, there's dynamic vertical force chart. Can you, just quickly, what do you use? Do you use all three of them? What do you use the most? And how?
So I use the center of pressure chart the most. And the center of pressure chart is basically a picture of your 2 feet. Inside the center of pressure chart, there's a little ball that kind of moves around. That's your center of pressure. And then each foot looks like a thunderstorm, essentially. That's certainly what I use the most. It makes the most sense for students to be able to visualize things. It helps me really kind of see what the feet are doing. That chart also gives you percentages as far as what the percentage on your front and back of each foot are independently, as well as the percentage left and right. And those numbers combined is what creates that little white ball in the middle, basically your pressure trace. So that's certainly what I use. I would say probably 90% of the time. The velocity chart is basically your typical XY axis. And what it shows is how fast your pressure is changing from left to right. And that can be really useful when you're trying to show somebody how they are potentially stalling out and moving ahead. Sometimes they don't see it with that white ball as much. So if all of a sudden you see a chart that goes up, back down again, people start to understand a little bit more. Well, I can see I'm going faster, I'm slowing down, I'm going fast again. So it's a good way that you can quantify things and show things. I think the center of pressure is certainly more valuable for the students' understanding, where the velocity and then the dynamic vertical force are good for kind of reinforcing things, or you might not see a big change in the pressure, but maybe I'll go to the velocity and then I'll be able to show someone, and that's a chart the dynamic vertical force chart is a chart that basically measures how much compared to your body weight, how much you put into the ground. And naturally, if you look at someone like Lexi Thompson, she uses the ground extremely well. She's a very unique swing, but her vertical force has to be through the roof. But being able to show someone, in this swing, before we made this change, your left foot was only putting 0.52 of your body weight into the ground. You're now at 0.75. All of a sudden, they understand, wow, I'm pushing harder into the ground, which naturally means you're using the ground a lot better. So being able to use those numbers just to help quantify improvement can be very useful. But like I said, the center of pressure is certainly my go-to for most people, because I think it's simpler for students to understand, where the others can be good reinforcement or help the instructor understand exactly what's going on a little better.
Awesome. Great. Now, about your own golf swing, what is it that you've used, or what have you seen in your own golf swing that you've helped improve by using the V1 Pressure Mat?
So I have always kind of been more of a center pivot type person. What I mean by that is I'm not making a big move into my right side. When I got on the pressure mat, I saw that. I've always had a hard time really embracing that. I've had people that I've worked with on my swing over the years really tell me, man, you need to get more into your right side, or you're not getting into your right side, or you're leaning forward, or you're doing stack and tilt. And I've never embraced a swing method. That's another conversation for another time. But to me, I've really gotten into a more of an embracement of what I do, and being able to see my numbers on video have also helped me to continue that longer term. So if things go off, I can put myself on the pressure mat, and all of a sudden I can realize, man, I'm 5% off at the top of the swing where I normally am. Or maybe coming through, I feel like I'm hanging back a little bit. Yep, I'll put it on there. One thing that I've really has helped me a lot, though, is when it comes to footwear. And this is kind of a weird thing, but a lot of shoes, and especially golf shoes these days, more and more are starting to get where they're a little bit heel up in the shoe. And some of these videos here that you're seeing right now, that was me kind of doing some experimentation one day, where I was swinging in sneakers almost all winter long, and my swing didn't feel great. And all of a sudden I'm sitting here teaching one day, and I'm watching a guy hit balls, and he's wearing sneakers, and I'm asking him to get into his right heel more. He can't do it. No matter what, cannot do it. And this light bulb goes on. I said, hey, where are your golf shoes? And he says, they're in my car. I said, go get them. Don't hit another ball. He puts on his golf shoes. Instantly, he's into his right heel where he should be. And I start to realize this, and I was not always that consistent with the footwear I would wear. I'd hit balls and different stuff, and really helped me to understand how important a level shoe is when you swing. And that's probably had a bigger impact on me than anything, because now I will not hit balls if I don't have the shoes on that I like to wear. And I think that's had a very big impact on me. Cool little sidebar. I was working with a guy last winter, similar situation. He lost about 8 miles an hour club head speed, and he had some minor health issues. Hadn't played golf for a little while, but he was a Division I athlete, very athletic guy, very strong guy, and he had lost some speed. So he's hitting in sneakers, and we're trying to figure out exactly where his loss is. Had him change golf shoes. He picked up 8 miles an hour by changing golf shoes. And if you would look at the video and look at the pressure trace, it's 100% because his lower body's engaged in the swing a lot better. And not that his mechanics weren't better, but they were better as a result of the footwear allowing it to be better. So that's a really big piece that has impacted my own game a lot.
That's very cool. Never really thought about footwear making that much of a difference, but I could see being consistent, and not in your clubs is important, but also being consistent in your footwear obviously makes a huge difference as well. Is there anything else that you would want to touch base on about the pressure mat? Any one last statement?
I would say to anyone that's thinking getting into pressure, anyone that's using it, absolutely embrace it. It is an invaluable tool to use. It will show you things that you cannot see in a video. It's so easy to take a video with a cell phone, so easy to take a video with an iPad. I understand it's a financial investment. There's no way around that, but we have to differentiate ourselves as instructors. And if everyone in your area is teaching with just video, or let's say a launch monitor, and all of a sudden you have a pressure mat and it's measuring things and showing these cool charts to people that other people don't have, it will be a differentiator. It will help you teach better. It will help you have a better understanding of why your students are doing what they're doing, how they're doing what they're doing, but also helps you to show things in a much different light than what words can do at times. So it is an awesome, awesome tool to have for instruction.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for your time. And, this was awesome. I can tell that you definitely know your stuff. You have taught with pressure for a couple of years. You're helping your students. We always love your input. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.